All right, so this is section 2.2. It does contain several more graphs, but I want to let you know we are only going to be focusing on two of them right now, the stem and leaf plot and the dot plot. The other graphs that you see in this section will either be things that you've seen before, like a pie chart, or things that we'll talk about in greater length later on when we need them, like the scatter plot. Okay, so again, what you're going to be focused in on is just the stem and leaf plot and the dot plot. All right, so I'm going to start with the stem and leaf. First thing is to understand what we mean by a stem and a leaf. So let me start with a pretty easy example. If you have a 2-digit number in your data set and you want to put it in a stem and leaf plot, all you're going to do is split it right down the center. You'll see how we've defined this here. The stem is always the left digit, and the leaf is the right digit. All right, and I went ahead and gave you an example of a stem and leaf plot here. This is from your book, so that you could see how these were going to be constructed. All right, and what you have down the left-hand side here, these are all of your stems. And then for each stem, you have the corresponding leaves listed on the other side. All right, now you'll notice some of the stems in this example have more than one digit, and that's okay. Stems can have more than one digit, but a leaf should always be the single rightmost digit. So let's say, for example, your data set had 134 as one of its data values. In that case, you would section off the single rightmost digit. That would be your leaf, and your stem in this case would be 2 digits, and it would be 13. All right, now a few things to keep in mind. Number one, you'll notice that everything in the example is listed in order. That's called an ordered stem and leaf plot, and we're always going to make sure that we finish with everything in our plot listed in ascending order. That just gives the most information. Another thing to note here is that you're always going to want to include a key. All right, you'll see the key right here. It's just an example. Just shows someone how to read your stem and leaf plot so that if they want to put the values back together again, they understand that this little separating bar, it just simply means you've got left digits and right digits. Okay, so let's start by constructing one, and this is the same data set that we've been using, the 30 speeds. When I go to construct a stem and leaf plot, the first thing that I do is figure out the range of my stems. All right, and the way that I do that is focusing in on the smallest and the largest value. So our lowest speed here is 35, and because I know the stem is the left digit, I know it has a stem of 3. So my lowest stem here is going to be 3. Don't have to go any lower than that. My maximum value here is 72. And again, right now I'm just focused on stems, which is the left digit. So I know now that my stems are going to have to include everything from 3 through 7. Okay, when you figure out that range of stems, you include everything in between. Now on the other side, I want to list the leaves. Okay, and again, that's just going to be the right digit. So for example, first value is 44. Okay, that has a stem of 4. It also has a leaf of 4. So I'm going to write it like this. Okay, so I'm putting it with its stem and writing its leaf on the other side. Second value is 38. That has a stem of 3 and a leaf of 8. So again, put it with its stem, write the leaf on the other side. Do a few more here. We've got a value at 41. So I'm back to a stem of 4. Notice I'm not putting commas or anything in between my leaves. You don't have to do that because it's understood that leaves are single digits. So you can just list them out side by side. All right. Now I've got a value of 50. So again, just put it with its stem and list its leaf. I've got a 60. I've got 36. I've got 43, 42, 49, and 48. All right, that's all the values across the top row there. So I'm going to continue till I've done this for every value, because So I'm on the second row now. I've got a 35, a 40, a 37, 41, 43, 50, 42, 45, 39, and 72. So I finished the second row. And my last row here, I've got another 50. Notice if the value repeats, you do repeat the leaf as well. There should be a leaf in here for every data value. Picking up from there, I've got a 41, a 47, a 36, and a 35, 40, 42, got a 63, a 48, and a 43. Now you can see right off the bat how this summarizes the data, how it makes it easy to see where you have high frequency, what values are more common, what values are less common. Makes it real easy to see repeating values. But like I said, two things you want to make sure you always do in your stem and leaf plot. One is make sure that everything's in order. So when I go to finish, I'm going to look at each row of leaves, and I'm going to make sure that I rewrite it in ascending order. So this one should be written 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so again, all I'm doing here is making sure that I finish with an ordered plot. And in order to do that, I'm going to rewrite those leaves in ascending order. Okay, and again, I need for every row of leaves to be listed in ascending order. So notice I'm also going to have to do that for a stem of 4. All right, and that was going to be a little more time consuming, so I went ahead and did that beforehand. So when you order, again, it's going to group common values together. And just give you a little bit more information about what's going on. Now, the other thing I said to always make sure you include is your key. And like I said, a key is just an example, right? You can use any number you want. I usually just take the first one. But you're just showing somebody, okay, when I write 3/5, that's the same thing as a data value of 35. And so now if they want to put the data set back together, they can do that and have all 30 speeds. All right, now, let's talk about a couple of special cases. One is when we have those larger numbers. All right, so I've copied over this one, the plot that we just did. Okay, but what we're stating here is how it would change if we had added these higher speeds. So the first thing that you should notice is if we had a maximum at 113 instead of 72, this would mean that our stems would have to run all the way down to 11. All right, remember, once you figure out the range of your stems, you've got to include everything in between. Now notice when I do that, I'm not going to have any values with a stem of 8. So I leave the stem there, all right, and I'm just going to leave the other side here completely blank. All right, going to put nothing there. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my 97, my 100, and 105, and 113. All right, so this is a big thing to keep in mind. All stems need to be there from lowest to highest, even if there are no corresponding leaves. All right, this is an easy way that we look for jumps or changes in the data. Now, something else to keep in mind is how to work with decimal numbers. And the main thing about that is if you see that any of your values have decimals, you want to write them all in the same form with the same number of digits. So, for example, when I see that I've got a value that goes to 1 decimal place, I'm going to make sure all of my values are written to 1 decimal place. And now I can approach this just like a 2-digit number, right? Split it right down the center. When I do that, I can see that my stems are going to range from 0 to 3. And my leaves, again, right now I'm just doing left digit and right digit. For 0, I've got a 4 and a 6. For 1, I have a 0, a 2, and a 5. Notice there are no values here with a stem of 2, keep the 2 there, leave the other side blank, and then for 3 I have 1 and 5. Right now, also notice I didn't put any decimals in the plot, and I shouldn't because it is a summary. So when you have decimal numbers, where you show that is in your key. So when you write this key and you show that that line in between is actually a decimal, then we understand that it applies to the whole data set, and then we make sure we're reading the values correctly. All right, so again, pretty simple plot, just a few things to watch out for and to keep in mind. All right, this second one, the dot plot, like the stem and leaf plot, it does maintain each individual value, so you can put the data set back together if you need to. The main thing about the dot plot is it looks at your values relative to scale. So you're going to set up a horizontal scale, right, just a basic number line. And then these dots that you're seeing here, all that happens is we plot every data value on that scale. So it shows a lot of the same things the stem and leaf plot does, but because it's graphed to scale, it makes it very obvious when we have these big like jumps or changes in the data. It makes it easy to see values that are extreme or very different from the rest of the data set because it is always graphed to scale. All right, so I'm going to get you started on this one, give you the basic setup, and then you should be able to go through and finish it. Again, the main thing is that you have to graph this to scale. So the first thing I'm going to do again is keep in mind my minimum and my maximum. My number line has at least got to go from 35 to 72. So I'm going to start mine just below at 34, and I'm going to set my scale, labeling by 4s. And this is what I'm going to use to plot my data values. All right, now my number line isn't quite long enough, all right, but you get the idea. We're going to set up a scale. We're going to make sure that we have a place to plot every value. All right, now again, just to kind of get you started here, if my first value is at 44, I'm going to locate 44 on my number line, and I'm just going to plot it with a dot. Notice I'm not on the number line. I want that to be my scale, so just above. And then I'm going to go to my second speed, which was 38, do the same thing. I'm going to go to 41, move out here to 50. I would plot my 60. Again, I would have to extend my number line a little bit to get everything there. I'm going to plot my 36. I've got a 43, 42, 49, and 48. All right, now I'll do a few more just to kind of show you what happens when values repeat. So second row, we've got a 35, we've got a 40, a 37, and then notice I've got another 41. So when values repeat, all we're going to do is stack the dots. So I'm going to do 41, I've got another 43, I've got another 50, another 42, and then I'm just going to continue this process because, again, the main thing is to make sure that I plot each and every value, in this case speed, on my number line. Also want to make sure anytime you're setting a scale, make sure you label what that scale represents. All right, so that is going to be an important part of this plot as well, to make sure that it's interpreted correctly. And again, I didn't finish this because mainly I just wanted to kind of show you the trend, but you can see when you finish, you should have a dot representing every one of those 30 speeds. All right, so again, these are the two things you're going to focus on right now, stem and leaf and dot plot. These are the things you're going to be seeing in your homework for section 2.2 as well.